On the sixth day of Christmas, namely 90s gave to me 6 drinks of sherry, 5 punches to the face, 4 malicious rumors, 3 serenity nows, 2 grumpy old men, and a Xena warrior princess.
Very nice.
Thank you. Thank you.
Beautiful.
Thank you.
Welcome to Namely 90s. Wow. The podcast that takes you back to the time before smartphones, Google, and Y2K. Join your hosts as they relive the pop culture that shaped a generation and the parts that many people wish they could forget. Listen in to the conversation about how the decade defined those who spent their childhood there and how it shaped them as adults. So, turn down the grunge and dial up the internet. Let's get started. It's time for Namely 90s.
That's right. You're listening to Namely 90s. I'm Andrew. As usual, that's Brandon over there.
That's me.
We are online at namely90s.com or on Twitter at namely90s. That's with a 90S. And we hope everyone had a lovely Christmas. Today marks episode 6 of our 12 Days of Christmas special. And to introduce our guest, let's go to Brandon.
Happy Boxing Day to our UK friends and Canadian friends, and I want to say Australian friends, but I'm not sure they celebrate it there. Bank holiday. Let's watch all the rejected Christmas specials that didn't make it onto Christmas Day on the Beeb. But yes, today we have Adare from What's Wrong With Them, a podcast that's coming soon. It's a true crime diagnostic podcast. Do you want to tell us a little bit more about What's Wrong With Them?
Sure. So What's Wrong With Them is a true crime diagnostic podcast. I'm a therapist and I'm reviewing famous criminals, murderers, cult leaders, and hopefully trying to figure out exactly what's wrong with them. And I'm working towards diagnosing them as best I can.
That's a really cool premise.
Very cool. Very cool.
Thank you.
Yeah, I think it's a little bit different. It's a little bit different than there's a lot of true crime right now, but I think from the perspective of trying to analyze stuff about that's really, I think, a different take.
Yeah, I love true crime. I've been obsessed with it for a really long time. When I told my dad I was starting a podcast, he was like, oh, finally. Glad. But every time I tell someone I'm a therapist, they always start to ask me questions like, well, what's wrong with this person? And what's this diagnosis? And what does that mean? So finally, I'm just going to condense it all and put it out there for everyone to know.
What serial killer would you say are you asked the most about?
Well, I'm starting with all the big names because everyone asks about, you have to, right? Ted Bundy, Dahmer, Kemper, John Wayne Gacy. I really am fascinated by female serial killers because there's so few of them. So there would definitely be a series just on female serial killers. But yeah, all the big names. And Ted Bundy's been so popular recently, all the movies and stuff. So everyone asks me about him.
Do you think that women are better at being serial killers? So
better at being serial? What's the metric for being not getting caught? I was like,
but more
killing more people.
More successful at getting away with it, I guess, would be. Or do you think they're just not inclined to do so?
I think it's both. I think there are probably way more female serial killers than we realize, and they are really good at getting away with it because, we're used to cleaning up blood. We can do that.
That's fair.
We all learned in our teenage years, so we just keep living our lives.
I didn't even think about that. Brilliant. And I have to say, you have an amazing parody of Four Non-Blondes, What's Up?
Thank you.
Is that going to be your intro song?
It is. I'm really excited about it. So that's my producer's husband, Clark Andros. Shout out. He sang it. He wrote it. It's probably one of my favorite songs. It's my go-to karaoke song. So that's where we came up with it. And then we just parodied. But it's my favorite thing about my podcast is the song.
It's, it's quite good. I always get that song stuck in my head if I just hear like a bar from it. That's the Hey, What's Going On song, Andrew.
Yes.
Okay, gotcha.
And did you tell people where they'll be able to find your podcast?
Oh, I did not. Everywhere. Right now we're up on Spotify and Apple Podcasts. I hope that we're just going to be on all of the things. Mm-hmm. So I keep getting more emails that we're up on more stuff. So I think we're also up on Google Podcasts, and I'm sure that there are other ones.
And your socials?
And our socials are, the best way would just be Instagram, which is What's Wrong With Them Pod. And then that'll link you to everything else. We have a Twitter, and I just started a Patreon as well, because that seems like what all the podcasts are supposed to do. So I did that too.
We keep referencing our Patreon, which we don't have. We just keep referencing it because it's the thing. It's the thing to do.
Yeah, we're more Twitter based. So if you could find them at www.tpod.
Yeah.
I feel like Instagram is definitely like the place to be. Twitter is kind of like the other people are on Twitter, the other podcasters, but actual people, it's kind of a wasteland. I feel like it's just bots.
Yeah. Our Twitter following is essentially just all the other Twitter or podcasts that we follow. And then like me. But yeah, so cool. And then your first episode will be out in January.
Yes.
Sorry, go ahead.
We recorded our first 3, and they will be all put out in January. And I think we're releasing them on Mondays.
Nice. And you said they come out in sets, so it's like, did you explain that premise already?
They'll be out in sets of 3. And so we're going to do 2 people and then a diagnostic discussion. So it'll be like murderer, cult leader, and then a common question I get, like, what is antisocial personality disorder? Or what's the difference between a psychopath and a sociopath? Or, you know, like what's nature versus nurture? Everyone talks about that, but what does it actually mean? So little things like that, and I'll go through like specific diagnoses or get a little more in depth with people, and also start to do interviews with other people, other therapist friends, true crime aficionados, anyone that wants to do it. That's
a cool idea. I like the variety that you'll have, but still it'll be very structured yet variety.
So I have a question. True crime's always been a fairly popular genre, but why do you think that all of a sudden it's just exploded in popularity, or do you think that's true?
I don't think that it's exploded. I think there's just more access to it, because I know that I loved it back when I was in 5th grade. I remember getting my first true crime books, but that was go to the library, have to find one, order it online, or ask my dad to have a credit card to order it online. So I think that there's just so much more access to it now that all of us people that thought we were weird and the only people that liked it have found our friends. And
going a little deeper, I guess, maybe, why are people fascinated with crime? There's crime TV, there's the true crime stuff. What is that?
I really think that it's people trying to figure out how people get to that point. And also am I capable of getting to that point? I think a lot of it is really people's own introspection. Exactly. People being could I do that? Am I capable of that? Do I know somebody that's done that?
Huh. Well, and I think it's also very stylized. We're going through and watching CSI right now. I'm there isn't a crime lab in the entire nation that looks like that. They're fluorescent lights, people wearing lab coats. There's just, and everything's blue and dark, So I just think that's kind of funny.
So CSI New York?
Yeah, basically. You can't even see what's going on.
Yeah.
That set is pitch black.
Yeah, there's definitely a color scheme to it too, Dexter, and even Tim Burton movies too have that really hard contrast with the bright red, and it's very eye catching, and I think that intrigues people too.
And I don't think the genre has exploded. I think it's just morphed to a new medium, being podcasts. Like, because I'll go home and like my aunt will be watching like Dateline or something, and I'll just get sucked into it too. It's like, how they know how to stage the narrative in a way where you want to watch all 2 hours, even though you could just Google it on your phone to see what actually happened.
Yeah, it takes 2 hours to get there. Or at the end of the first hour, you're like, oh, then you realize it's another hour. You're like, okay, I'm going to bed. That's me most times. Like,
I'm assuming it's the boyfriend, and I can save myself an hour if I just Google it.
It's almost always the boyfriend or the husband.
I do think there's a fair amount of like undetected poisonings, because this whole thing on TV about like, oh, we did a talk screen and we found like that's not really a thing as much as people would like it to be. So I do feel like undetected poisoning is a much more common way of killing people than we realize.
Yeah, and it differs between men and women. So people also kill differently, and women are more likely to like poison or do more like I want to say sneaky things, versus men are more messy.
That makes sense.
Yeah.
Going back to we haven't been cleaning up blood for
for your whole lives.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So speaking of serial killers,
Christmas,
that's somehow a good segue into Christmas and the show Fraiser. I'm not sure how.
Well, it just happened to be serendipitous that Fraiser is a psychiatrist, and
I guess there's that.
That's how I'm loosely linking the two. Both practitioners of the mental arts.
Mental arts, okay.
Yes, that's the way
I hadn't heard that term.
I don't think it's
okay.
I don't think it's a commonly used thing, but I've heard it used somewhere before in a way where someone was trying to dance around not remembering if someone was a psychologist or a psychiatrist.
Yes.
But
or did you just confuse it with dental arts?
I think it was Defense Against the Dark Arts. Just for those of you on the audio portion of our podcast, I'm wearing a Hufflepuff sweatshirt, Christmas sweater. Because we've just been skipping over Christmas memories or holiday memories. No one seems to have them.
Or they're not worth talking about, I guess. I don't know. Unless you're from England, then they love talking about it. But.
Well, I've specifically asked them to pre-record.
I know. It's just interesting. It's cool.
Which again is 4 episodes away. Yes. So sorry, we just prattle on when we get the opportunity. Fraiser. I really enjoyed it as a kid because it was always on reruns. Andrew and I grew up in the Seattle area. He's still in Washington, I guess, if you could call it that. And but Fraiser was set in Seattle. I think my parents used to watch Cheers a lot before it spun off into Fraiser.
See, I didn't know it was a spinoff, but I do remember watching it a lot. My parents watched it, and it just bored me to tears. But it's because I didn't get it, at that age.
Yeah.
Same.
So Fraiser was a character introduced in Cheers season 3 to break up Sam and Diane. If you don't know who Sam and Diane is, that's okay. You're probably our age. Because I remember watching Cheers, but Kirstie Alley was on, not whoever played Diane. So, I never knew there was like 4 or 5 seasons prior to her being on where Shelley Long was the main character. Anyway, he's left at the altar at season 4 by Diane. He eventually becomes a drunk and a regular at Cheers until Sam and Diane find a way to trick him back into sobriety. Then he eventually meets Lilith, his second wife, gets married, has a kid. She cheats on him. They get divorced. And then you get a spinoff because Cheers is over. So, yes, that was a very unnecessary backstory to Fraiser.
I really didn't know that was the backstory, so that was really helpful.
Yeah. Then he moves to Seattle because his dad is injured or something.
Yes.
And
he was the police officer.
Retired
and he was shot in the hip, I think. I
Yes.
just know he had the cane.
That's why he walks around with a cane. Yes. Yeah. And his bumbling brother wasn't able to take him in. So, yeah.
He was also a psychiatrist.
Yes, but he's a private practice a psychiatrist.
So Fraiser hosts a radio talk therapy type show,
which does not even feature in the episode that we watched.
I know. I realized I forgot that he did a radio show until I saw something like a image of that, and then then there was no radio in this episode. The other thing I noticed is like his apartment has that amazing view of Seattle,
but Space Needle. I
could be wrong, but I'm pretty sure there aren't any like residential buildings that would be that high and with that view in Seattle.
It looks like it looks like he lives at the Como News 4 building, the ABC building.
I thought he was like halfway up the Columbia Tower or something. That's how high it looked.
But the Space Needle is like right there. Sorry.
Oh, that's true. You're right. Because the Space Needle is actually distant from downtown.
Yeah, it's like he lives at the top of the Experience Music Project or something. It's a shout out to all of our Seattle listeners. I really enjoyed Kelsey Grammer as a voice. I don't know if that's a weird thing to say. He has two daughters that one's a voice actress / actress as well, and the other one's just a regular actress. And Kelsey Grammer appeared on The Simpsons as Sideshow Bob, which is one of my favorite characters. Yeah. Because he has that low hello Bart.
He does a lot of voice acting, actually.
Does he? Yeah. He was also Beast in the X-Men movies. But in The Simpsons, eventually Sideshow Bob gets a brother and a father, and the brother is played by the guy that plays Niles, and his father is played by the guy that plays Martin on Cheers, or not Cheers, Fraiser.
That's fine. I did not know that.
Yeah, and that's my backstory for Kelsey Grammer as well. Fraiser. And I talked a lot about Fraiser. Anyone else have any memories of Fraiser? Adare.
I didn't really know it all that well. So I also remember my parents watching it, like bits and pieces. And then again, bits and pieces actually that I watched in grad school for examples of what not to do. So let's just clarify. Like, he's not the best example. So there's that. And then I was like, all right, okay, I'll go back. And I actually watched most of season 1 just to remind myself. Wow,
that's commitment. I'm pretty sure I said you only have to watch this one episode, right?
You did, and then I just kept watching it.
Okay, just making sure. I feel like those early episodes are pretty rough too. Like,
yeah, they are.
A lot of shows, yeah. So this episode we watched was from season 5, episode 9, Perspectives on Christmas.
Yes,
which aired in 1997.
Yep. My first note is, hey, creepy dials already.
Yeah. I didn't realize that was a gag, like that was an ongoing gag, but then I obviously throughout the episode realized that it was.
I didn't realize how long it lasted because he's creeping on her from the first episode, if I remember correctly.
That's actually why I went back, because I was like, how long has this been happening?
And now I need to know.
At least 5 seasons. And then eventually she marries him after he gets married and divorced. I'm curious, how do you feel about that? Like, is that not some sort of like psychological torture?
I mean, if I'm going to diagnose anyone in the show, it would have to be Niles. Like, there's definitely some stuff going on there.
Yeah, no kidding. Maybe a little bit of, certainly some narcissism, but
I think that shit comes from the people that watch and enjoy the show. I thought the framing of this episode was a little weird. Just that it's 4 separate tales. None of them are from Fraiser's point of view.
True.
And they're all like, this was suggested as the best Christmas episode of Fraiser, which made me question how bad are the other Christmas episodes of Fraiser. I did laugh out loud when his dad was trying to sing the Oh Holy Night high note. That got me, I'll be honest. Because I was expecting him just to have like a bad voice crack. He went full like I don't know how to describe it. It was like me singing.
Yeah, you were expecting one thing, and it definitely went a different way, which is always fun.
And then,
I was just gonna say, I will say, I did laugh out loud several times watching this episode, which I don't do a lot of. So I thought the jokes were pretty good in this one.
I think that's the only time I laughed out loud.
I can't remember specifically. That helps, right? But no, it was pretty good.
Well, yeah, I'm the only one that takes notes. It's cool. But I also thought that when both Fraiser and Niles were singing together, it reminded me of Dwight from The Office. Like both of them were just Dwight, and I was like, huh. I wonder if they took any inspiration from that at all.
That's one of the things I laughed at when they were both doing that, and they told their dad to join in. He's like, "No, I'm afraid with three of us doing it, it'll look weird or something."
Okay, that was pretty good.
I thought that pretty good.
And yeah, then they kept cutting to the masseuse, and it was the same person. I'm like, why do they all have the same masseuse? Which is explained at the end. But
I do have to go back to one thing you mentioned, which was the paprika gag where he means to put nutmeg in the drink, but instead he puts paprika. Like, paprika's not a pungent spice. It barely tastes like anything. So unless he inhaled it to cause the cough, maybe something like cayenne, but he could have inhaled the nutmeg just as easily. So I thought that was kind of a bad joke. I'm sorry.
I assumed it was like smoked paprika.
Yeah, I don't know. I think it was a bit of a reach, but that's just me. I'm a foodie a little bit. So are you, you know.
That's why I'm trying to cover for them. Yeah. I don't know. I thought it was interesting how each story was slightly different from each person's perspective, except it was only clearly evident in the first two.
Yeah.
With the mistletoe.
Yeah, the mistletoe. Yeah, the creepy mistletoe.
Yeah. But that was a good correction. It wasn't really a correction, but that was a good way to show how she understood it and how he understood it. I thought that was pretty funny.
Which is even worse, isn't it?
Yeah, so
she's in. Niles says, that's pretty dangerous standing underneath that mistletoe. And that's all it says in one of them. And then in the next one, she walks in and he says, it's really dangerous standing under that mistletoe. Some of it might fall and hit you in the eye.
So she's oblivious to this whole thing.
Yeah.
Okay. That's what I thought. Okay.
But her version was the one without the extra part, wasn't it?
No, I think hers is the one where it was going to fall and hit her in the eye. I think she was making a reason why he would say something like that.
Got it. Yeah.
But I did appreciate with her story how it kept hers was my favorite because it kept playing into that whole joke of she thought he was dying and he kept saying things that pertained to that, but were about something else. And I thought that was all pretty clever, actually.
Clever.
I do love those old shows though, where they always turn towards the camera, so over dramatic, and they're sad. Gosh. I love it.
Eye roll.
Yeah. Classic. So we've watched nearly 12 episodes of 90s television at this point for these specials, and there are running gags or not running gags. There are the same jokes across multiple shows, and I just have to say my bullet point that says, "Oh, the 90s when creepy guys can get their hugs in for a laugh."
Yeah.
And then,
dudes were creepy in the 90s on TV. It was really not okay. There was, it's been a theme.
I finished that thought with F the Big Bang Theory, but that's just me.
I'm with you.
Yeah. I made a note. I was curious why they would frame it from Martin's point of view first. So we're in on the joke instead of creating a fake drama from Daphne's point of view, thinking that he's going to die. But I guess if we're in, I think
the jokes were funnier because we were in on it. Yeah.
Got it.
I like your next point. This is not a great episode of Fraiser. You were talking about that. This really is the best one. Yeah. I don't know.
It's ranked highest in the Christmas episodes. Seriously.
And thank you. When he gets into the elevator with the giant Christmas tree, why does he not take the suit jacket off?
Yeah, he takes his regular jacket off. Why not take his suit jacket off? He's so Niles I guess we've been doing a bad job of explaining parts of the episode to people listening. But Niles gets on an elevator. There's an old couple and a lady and a giant Christmas tree, and the elevator gets stuck. So he has to climb a Christmas tree up to the top of the elevator to do the release, because no one else wants to do it, and he doesn't want to be stuck in there for an hour and a half, I guess. And he's like, I don't want to climb it because I'm wearing a brand new custom tailored Italian silk suit. Yeah. It's very funny.
And it's very difficult to get sap out of it.
That's
I like how he comes out of the elevator and then he gets to the door. I think it's in his version where he's like, but by the time I got there, I was composed again. And then he like walks in and immediately falls down. I was like, that's a good one. I like that joke.
that was pretty good. And like they preview it in the previous story where it's like he walks in and he's just like
completely disheveled and like limping and all that.
There's a green splotch on him for some reason. I liked when he opened the elevator, they all just left him in there and he's like, lady with my coat, are you still there?
Yeah, that was pretty good.
And that started the gag. That's Dr. Crane's brother. And then they're like, oh. On to the fourth story, which was from Roz's perspective. I didn't expect it to be from her perspective. I forgot that at this point in the series she was pregnant, and yay, we've made it on to the 90s fat joke portion.
I forgot she was a character until because she wasn't in the show until that point in time, and I was like, oh yeah, she was in this show. Yeah.
She's Fraiser's producer for the show.
But yeah, nothing more 90s than fat jokes. Seriously.
Mm-hmm. I don't know if you watched the episode yet, but I've watched Friends for our 6 episodes from now on our last day of Christmas. They go hard on the Monaco's fat jokes.
Yeah, they do.
Yeah. But that's spoiling the future, and we shouldn't do that.
No.
I wrote down, oh God, no, Fraiser, no, because he told Roz's mom that she was pregnant.
Oh, so cringy.
I did not see that coming, and when he said it, I was like, oh no.
But
when she said it,
like classically something that would happen to Fraiser if we're being honest. Like, he always gets himself in like a foot and mouth situation.
And then tries to cover for it by being like, oh, no. Like, but I'll tell her. Like, what if she hears it from me? And then she's like, that's so much worse. And he's like, oh, no.
I wrote down one of my good friends in high school. His family used to run the Santa photos, I think, at Bellevue Square and possibly downtown. I thought that was interesting. A small shout out to my high school friend's family. I don't know why I wrote this down, but I have, what are you, 20? ?
Yeah, when that older kid comes up to Santa.
Oh, yes.
Yeah, what are you, 20?
So Fraiser and Roz have to dress up as Mr. and Mrs. Claus for Santa photos. They did not do a great job at it, I have to say.
Or explain why, unless that happened in another episode.
It was a charity thing, so I presumed it had to do with his like pseudo celebrity status or something. I don't know.
I think it was a one-off line that she said in the third story. No, it was. I don't remember. It was whenever he told her mom that they had to that she was pregnant. She mentioned they were doing it for charity and. Yeah, I guess radio celebrities get to be Santa with their producers.
Turns out.
Yeah.
He's basically like Seattle's Dr. Drew, is my understanding.
Pretty much. Actually, that's how I always thought of him when I was in the 2000s, now that I think about it. Also a hysterical pregnant woman. So funny. It's another 90s sitcom staple.
Oh yeah.
And then on tomorrow's episode, we watched South Park, Mr. Hanky, the Christmas Poo. and they had another baby Jesus pageant joke, which
those are popular in 90s
which
holiday
for
shows.
some reason they had Eddie was like chewing on the baby Jesus in this episode. I would be curious to see if writers went from Fraiser to I can't finish that statement.
Yeah, it's still not as bad as the origin story of Jesus from Xena Warrior Princess, their Christmas episode, which is just so cringeworthy.
For our first episode, we watched Xena Warrior Princess, A Solstice Carol.
Not recommended.
Oh, I'm gonna look it up now. Talk it up.
It's quite. It's very fascinating. You get the origin of A Christmas Carol, you get the origin of Santa Claus, and the baby Jesus.
Because these are all well known to have occurred in the same time, period.
Yes.
Just so you know.
In Greek mythological time.
Yeah.
And then some fat jokes thrown in, and a terrible pregnant woman in the corner.
Some fat jokes, some homophobia. It's perfect. It's the 90s.
Yeah, slightly rapey men.
Yeah, seriously.
Wow, we really should just like have a debrief after all this. Just kind of go through all the '90s staples that we saw.
Oh no!
Yeah,
I don't think we want to do that.
So at the end of the episode, Fraiser's like, "I'm going to sit you all down and have a heartfelt conversation about why I love you, and that's my gift to you for Christmas." I thought that was pretty good. I mean, I think that would be better. Isn't that essentially what you just gave me yesterday for Christmas? Because I gave you a book of Jules poetry.
Yes. The book is down here now, but yes, thank you for my book of poems by Jewel.
Amazing.
You're welcome. And I got this. Yeah. So I was just I couldn't believe that was the ending. He's like, everyone just booed him. And he's like, well, I guess I could get you massages. Like, who has a masseuse on call for Christmas Eve at like 9
on Christmas Eve, right? That's what I was thinking too.
And who is this guy that he would come and give massages on Christmas Eve at like
5 straight hours?
Yeah, it's in the evening. Like,
one thing I'll never understand is massage therapy looks super difficult to perform, and you're doing like all day. Could you imagine? You would need a massage at the end of that.
Mm-hmm.
I was slightly concerned about Niles' massage since he was having an erotic dream during his.
Yeah.
I was waiting for a joke to build off of that, and then it didn't happen. I was like, ooh, probably couldn't do that on TV.
Yeah.
Didn't like it.
I don't
like it.
Yeah. I don't think they. Yeah. And this was before David Hyde Pierce came out of the closet, so he was probably trying to avoid being shown in that light. Just because the 90s was a really weird time. Everyone.
It sure was. We love it, but we hate it.
I mean, I know this is my standard, but it's like the homophobic jokes in Friends. Like, really?
It's pretty bad. Yeah, Friends is just like straight up homophobic and fat jokes. It's very much, it's bad.
But I do have to say, I love that outro song that Kelsey Grammer sings, the tossed salad and scrambled eggs, even though I think that might be offensive for some reason. I saw an article once that said, like, calling his patients tossed salads and scrambled eggs or some kind of euphemism. I don't know. Mildly,
I would say that's offensive. I don't fully understand it, but I do think that's offensive.
Yeah, right.
I feel like that is a metaphor for our society right now. I don't fully understand that, but I'm offended by
it. I'm offended.
I don't think the tossed salads part has the same connotation it does today.
Definitely not.
But the scrambled eggs is definitely referring to people's brain mental states.
Like this is your brain. This is your brain on drugs. So like scrambled eggs.
Thank you, Rachel Lee Cook. Yes. Which we do reference in an episode of Namely 90s.
Well, I know you said this was a mediocre episode.
It was a thoroughly average episode.
I did laugh at a lot of parts, and I thought the humor was a little bit higher brow than most. So I enjoyed it.
What did you think, Adare?
Honestly, going into it without a full, deep understanding of the show, it was pretty funny. But then I did go back and I watched like almost all of season 1 because I was like, I'm a completionist. I have to watch it all the way through now. And I was like, all right, it's kind of weird. It's weirdly done in comparison to the way that the other episodes are done.
Yeah. I mean, you have watched all of season 1 at this point. Did you find it to be above average compared to season 1 episodes or below? I guess we can ask.
Slightly below, mostly because I don't like the 4-story thing, and that's very weird. And none of the other episodes have storylines divided up like that. At least none of the ones that I've watched.
Yeah, that's a lazy framing device, quite honestly.
But for some shows it works. Like some shows have won Emmys for those like weird 3-4 story episodes, okay, but then others it's just garbage.
Community did it with 7.
They did it well.
Did it well, and yet I think they did win an Emmy for that.
I think House won an Emmy for an episode called 3 Stories as well.
All the anthology stuff goes down pretty well, but I don't know.
Not Fraiser. Sorry.
It was thoroughly average. It wasn't bad. It was just like, okay. They got their jokes in. They got their 90s staple humor.
Yeah.
Explain why he's so angry, though. Fraiser, why is he always so angry? Especially as a psychiatrist. I just find it really interesting that he lashes out so quickly.
Well, his dad's obnoxious. His brother's a weirdo. I don't know. I just feel like he has to deal with a lot with those people.
But then again, are you saying that as a psychiatrist, he should be aware of his own shortcomings and be able to not lash out at people since he understands why he's doing it in the first place?
I mean, I would think so, especially because at one point Niles even says to their dad, I think this is a psychological issue. And I'm like, can you not look at yourself?
A lot of times doctors are their worst patients a lot of times.
That's true.
I mean, that's true.
Yeah.
That is very true.
As a therapist with a therapist and therapist friends, I wouldn't want to work with me either.
That's fair. But what you would want is to have them on your upcoming podcast.
Yes.
Nice.
Yes.
Smooth.
What's wrong with them? I don't. So I also like that your podcast has a question mark and an exclamation mark at the end, but I don't know how to convey that by just
what's
saying,
wrong with them?
Exactly. It's an interrobang. That's the symbol when they're combined.
Oh. What? Okay. Mind blown. I did not know that had a term.
Yeah, it's called an interrobang. It was first used by Shakespeare. Just fun facts. And it is the idea of being both a question and excitement. So it's what's wrong with them? It's exciting and also confusing. And that's how I feel about true crime.
I feel like I need to practice saying that correctly for
the
outro. What's wrong with them?
Perfect.
But I feel like I have to hand motion.
Yes.
So,
just
our audio
listeners, put it at the end. It's great.
our audio listeners, just make sure to go to YouTube to see me speak with my hands.
Yes.
As Dr. Crane would. Any last thoughts on Fraiser, this episode, or the holiday season?
Just in general, I just want to listen to his radio show. I'm really curious. I want a full hour of just the radio show. And what he says and who calls in and how quickly he gets mad at them and yells at them. And then it just turns into the SNL skit where he's just stop it. It'd be good. I'd watch it.
Yeah. I also want that. I never knew I wanted that, but now I want that.
Now you do.
Well, I guess that's it. We did it. That's an episode. That's it for this holiday edition of Namely 90s. Thank you to Adare from What's Wrong with Them? Nope. Too happy?
Good one.
Perfect.
Okay. Do you want to tell everyone again where to find you and how?
Sure. What's Wrong with Them? You can find us on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, on Instagram at What's Wrong with Them Pod, on Twitter at www.tpod, and then Patreon as well at What's Wrong with Them Pod.
All right. And
I'm
as
definitely
always,
looking forward to it.
Yeah.
Hey, thank you. I'm so excited.
Going to be my first new new podcast listen in the new year.
Learn about psychology in the new year. What else are you going to do? We'll still be stuck inside.
Yeah, 2021's not going to be that much different.
Well,
guys.
we're all picking up the pieces from 2020, right?
The bar is set really low for 2021.
Hopefully that vaccine worked out, future everyone. And you can find us on Twitter at namely90s with a 90s, or our personal accounts at bshwitty and at namelyandrew to wish us a merry happy. You can also contact us through our website, namely90s.com. Please subscribe to us on Apple Podcasts, Stitcher, Google Play, Spotify, YouTube, brand new hand-tailored Italian suit, Deezer, TuneIn, iHeartRadio, and wherever you get your podcasts at. I'm Brandon. That's Andrew. Thank you again one final time to Adare from What's Wrong With Them for coming on, and we will catch you tomorrow.
Bye-bye.